Currently, the Australian property market is seeing a division into two tiers, with the markets in Sydney and Melbourne being sluggish, while those in Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide are on the rise. The power of buyers is gradually increasing, with many places experiencing a rush to purchase properties and some even buying without viewing them first. It's not uncommon for contracts to be signed without any reports being conducted. Properties are not only getting more expensive, but many need to be made aware of various costs associated with buying and owning a property. These costs, when added up, can be overwhelming, potentially leading to a situation where you might end up losing money rather than making a profit. In this video, we will discuss the 5 costs of buying and the 12 costs of owning a property in Australia. If you're a first-home buyer, an investor, or a foreign buyer, please watch till the end of the video. I guarantee you a more precise and comprehensive view when calculating the cash flow. And then you can make a rational property buying decision. Hi, my name is Alex. Welcome to Oz Property Strategy, where I share information about real estate investment, economic trends, and wealth creation. If you like this video, smash the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to watch new weekly videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. Upfront cost number 1, stamp duty. In Australia, buying a house comes with various taxes and fees, and one of the most well-known costs is the stamp duty. This one-time tax must be paid when purchasing a property, and it goes by different names in different states and territories, but we generally refer to it as stamp duty. Australia has 3 levels of government. The top level is the federal government, followed by the state and territory governments, such as New South Wales and Victoria, and the local councils like the City of Sydney or Whitehorse City Council. Each government level collects its own taxes independently. Stamp duty is a type of state tax. In New South Wales and Victoria, stamp duty is calculated in different ways. If you want to find out the exact amount of stamp duty for each state or territory, you can visit the state's Revenue Office website and use their built-in calculator. The tax rates change over time, so it's best to have a solicitor check the current rates when buying a property. In New South Wales, stamp duty is tiered, with an effective tax rate ranging from 4.5% to 5.5% of the property contract price. Note that if you're buying a single contract property, which includes all second-hand homes, off-the-plan apartments, and townhouses, the stamp duty is based on the contract price. For double contract properties like a house and land package, where the land has one contract and the building another, the stamp duty is only calculated on the land price, and the building contract does not incur any. Therefore, in many cases, a house and land package can save you a lot of stamp duty. In this diagram, I have listed the stamp duty rates in Australia's 4 major cities and the stamp duty required for properties priced at $1 million and $3 million, including the timing of payments. When you buy a property, it's important to note that the timing of stamp duty payments varies by state. If you're tight on cash, you need to plan your cash flow in advance. For example, in New South Wales, stamp duty must be paid within 3 months of signing the contract. If it's an off-the-plan apartment or townhouse, you might need to pay stamp duty before settlement. In contrast, in Victoria, Queensland, and Western Australia, stamp duty is paid when the property is handed over. What if you're late paying the stamp duty? Pay some interest on it. Interest is calculated daily. For example, in New South Wales, stamp duty interest is calculated at an annual rate of 12%. If you owe $40,000 in stamp duty and don't pay, you will be charged $400 in interest per month. Each state and territory has specific rules, so it's essential to check beforehand. Upfront cost number 2, stamp duty surcharge for foreign buyers. The stamp duty surcharge was specifically introduced to curb the purchase of Australian properties by foreign buyers. Since its unexpected introduction in 2016, when the Australian property market was thriving, the surcharge has not deterred the enthusiasm of foreign buyers. It was not until the second half of 2017, when the market began to decline, that people started to consider their purchasing costs. Today, this tax remains one of the biggest barriers for foreign individuals buying properties in Australia. The stamp duty surcharge is a state tax, and thus the rates vary across different states and territories. In most states, the rate is about 7 to 8% of the property price. Only Canberra and Darwin do not currently impose this surcharge. For foreigners purchasing properties in Sydney and Melbourne, just these 2 taxes, the stamp duty and the stamp duty surcharge, can add up to 12% to 13.5% of the property price, a significant amount that cannot be ignored. Like stamp duty, if you're purchasing a house and land package, the surcharge is only applied to the land value, which can save a considerable amount of money. A few points to note. First, the definition of a foreigner varies by state. For example, in New South Wales, permanent residents or those holding visas such as 309 or 820, and New Zealand citizens with a 444 visa who have lived in Australia for a total of 200 days in the 12 months before signing the contract do not have to pay the stamp duty surcharge. This exemption was cancelled as of 8th of April 2024. From then on, New Zealand citizens, unless they meet specific conditions such as holding a visa subclass 444 and having lived in Australia for the required period, must pay the surcharge when buying a property in New South Wales, along with citizens from other 7 countries. This is because of the change in tariff agreements on the federal level with these countries. Upfront costs number 3, FIRB. The FIRB is a fee charged by the federal government for reviewing property purchases by foreigners. In my view, it's just a way to charge more money, but it's a fee that cannot be avoided. The FIRB is collected by the federal government, specifically administered by the Australian Tax Office. So, regardless of where you buy a residential property in Australia, if you are a foreigner, you must pay this fee. For a property worth $1 million, the fee is $14,100 for new homes and $42,300 for second-hand homes. It sends a clear message to foreigners: don't buy a second-hand property in Australia. Some might not be aware that foreigners can buy second-hand properties in Australia. Unless you're Australian citizen, permanent resident, or New Zealand citizen, you generally cannot buy a second-hand property in Australia. This brings us to how FIRB defines a temporary resident. Typically, anyone holding a visa allowing continuous residence in Australia for more than 12 months is considered a temporary resident. This includes international students with a visa for 12 months or more and individuals who have applied for a spouse visa. However, even though you can buy, you also have to pay all the fees, and the property can only be owner-occupied, not rented out. Students must sell the property if they return to their home country, and there are many restrictions. All related information and applications are now available on the ATO website. In some cases, the FIRB application fee does not need to be paid, such as when one of the joint tenants buying a property is an Australian citizen, PR, or a New Zealand citizen. If several people are buying together as tenants in common, then the FIRB fee is paid based on the percentage of the ownership. The FIRB application fee, while significant, is not considered a major expense for foreign buyers, especially when compared to the stamp duty surcharge and other ongoing costs. What concerns buyer the most is when to pay and whether the application might be denied. Typically, the process and payment of the FIRB application are handled by the conveyancer. You should start looking for a property and place a deposit. Once the property contract reaches your conveyancer, it's time to apply for FIRB approval. Since the introduction of the FIRB fees, I haven't heard of a single case where an FIRB application was rejected. So don't worry too much about the result. You will get the approval. Upfront costs number 4, conveyancer. In Australia, lawyers are an inevitable part of buying a property. Buyers must hire a lawyer to handle the conveyancing process. There are 2 types of professionals who can perform this task: conveyancers and solicitors. Conveyancers specialize solely in the conveyancing process. They are never involved in civil litigation, criminal cases, or debt collection. This specialization may imply a higher level of expertise, but that isn't always the case. Some conveyancers lack experience and can only handle documentation. If disputes arise between the buyer and the seller, a solicitor often needs to step in, as conveyancers typically do not handle such issues. However, some solicitors might put pressure on the buyer to downplay issues instead of fighting for their best interests. Therefore, finding a reliable, professional, and adaptable lawyer is crucial. In terms of fees, conveyancers generally charge slightly less than solicitors. The usual fee range is between $1,650 and $2,200, covering only the service. There are additional charges for applying for FIRB approval, document searches, or negotiations on behalf of the buyer. A common challenge arises when purchasing house and land packages, as there are 2 separate contracts involved, one for the land and another for the building. Lawyers do not review building contracts as they may not understand the construction details, such as the difference between steel and wood frames. If a lawyer offers to review a building contract, you should be thankful, since it's beyond their usual responsibilities. Ultimately, you need to read the building contract yourself, because the lawyer cannot be held accountable for it. Typically, the buyer communicates directly with the builder about the building contract, and the lawyer is not involved. When choosing a lawyer, many people prefer someone based in the same state where the property is located, ideally with an office just around the corner. However, this shouldn't be the deciding factor. The lawyer's location is irrelevant since video conferencing is widely accepted nowadays. What matters more is the lawyer's experience. flexibility, and ability to handle conveyancing in the property state. I personally do not recommend large law firms as you may not know which lawyer will handle your case, and you might end up being serviced by several different lawyers throughout the process. Therefore, when choosing a lawyer, focus on the individual, not the firm. If you don't have an Australian visa and are buying a property, you will need to complete an identity verification. The most effective method is to go to the Australian consulate in your country with your passport and ID card for verification. It's worth noting that the conveyancing process in Perth differs significantly from that in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. In Sydney, for example, the contract must first be sent to the lawyer who reviews it and discusses it with you, including negotiating terms with the other side before you sign. The lawyer then handles the subsequent conveyancing process, such as managing payments to various agencies and the seller. Perth operates differently. The initial contract review and negotiation with the seller are usually done directly between the buyer and the seller without a lawyer's involvement. Contracts in Perth are straightforward, with little room for term negotiation. You either sign it or you don't. Once the contract is signed, it then goes to a settlement agent who only manages the rest till the property settlement. The fees are similar to those on the East Coast. However, the solicitors who look after our Vision members can handle the initial contract review, ensuring a worry-free property purchase experience. Upfront cost number 5, other costs. This section includes costs that we often overlook, but they can add up significantly. First, there's the loan application fee. Some might ask, the mortgage broker's commission is paid by the bank, isn't it? It is, but this only applies if you're applying for a normal loan. If you can't obtain a loan under the normal circumstances, perhaps due to insufficient income or qualifications, you may need a broker to do some cosmetic work. This might involve non-standard solutions like establishing a family trust, setting up a self-managed super fund, or using non-bank financial institutions. Next is the remittance fee. If your funds are in another country and you need to convert them to Australian dollars and then send them to Australia, this fee becomes applicable. Of course, if you can navigate the regulatory hurdles to transfer money, you won't have to pay this fee, but many find it challenging. In such cases, you might use a currency exchange service. They don't charge a fee, but make a little from the exchange rate. Additionally, if you want someone to inspect and negotiate the purchase of a second-hand property, you will need to hire a buyer's agent, with fees ranging from 1.1% to 1.65% of the contract price. If you handle the purchase yourself, you must also consider the time spent on searching for the property. These are the costs involved in buying a property, all of which are upfront and easily considered during the decision-making process. However, the next topic we'll discuss involves the ongoing costs of a property in Australia, which may be overlooked at the time of purchase. These costs can be surprisingly high, leading to regret over the initial decision. We'll cover the 12 major ongoing costs of owning a property in Australia. Ongoing costs number 1, land tax for citizens, PRs, and foreign buyers. Land tax is a state government tax, and each state and territory has its own tax rates and collection methods. It targets the land value component of the property you own, which is collected annually, and it represents a recurring expense. The land value is determined by the government assessment, which generally increases each year. In fact, this is a major reason why land prices in Australia continue to rise. If the government wants to collect more in land taxes, it must increase land valuations, which drives this policy. The only exception is the Northern Territory, where no land tax is collected, and consequently, not many people invest there. For properties in your personal name that are used as your primary residence, regardless of whether you're an Australian citizen, a permanent resident, or a foreign buyer, land tax is exempt in any state or territory except under special circumstances. This exemption is known as the Principal Place of Residence Land Tax Exemption, PPR. For houses, the land tax is substantial because the land value of houses is high. Apartments and townhouses also have land value. For instance, if a 1,000 square meter land is developed into 1,000 apartments, each apartment is allocated 1 square meter of land for tax purposes based on the value of that 1 square meter. In practice, we've seen cases like an $800,000 apartment in Sydney where the land value is over $300,000. Almost all states and territories have a land tax threshold, which is applicable to Australian citizens, permanent residents, and foreign buyers. If the total land value within the state exceeds this threshold, tax is due on the amount exceeding the threshold. For example, Victoria's land tax threshold is $50,000, meaning if you own a property in Victoria, you're likely to pay land tax. Additionally, land tax needs to be recalculated across different states. For example, land values in Victoria are calculated separately from those in New South Wales. This allows for strategic interstate property investments, which is a key consideration for property strategy when advising Vision members on creating an interstate investment portfolio. After adding all land values together, the land value of the principal residence is exempt, and only the land value of investment properties is considered. Each Australian state and territories has its own rules for principal residence land tax exemptions, but the specifics vary and can be pretty complex and interesting. For example, New South Wales tests whether you've lived in the house for a total of 6 months within the calendar year from January the 1st to December 31st. It doesn't matter if it's not continuous, but the property must not be rented out on December 31st. Victoria, however, requires continuous residence for 6 months within the calendar year, while Queensland specifies 6 months within the financial year along with other conditions. Western Australia is even more bizarre. There are no specific provisions determining principal residence status. Instead, it's based on common law developed through court cases, which consider your connection to the property. If you're interested, please download the LT 4.3 document from the Western Australian Government website. It's complex and not easily understandable, with one rule being that if you are not residing in the property on June the 30th, it's likely not considered your principal residence. Other factors are also considered. It's not just about being in the property on June the 30th. For foreigners buying a property in Queensland, there are 2 scenarios. One, if you meet the residency requirements and use the property as your primary residence, you're exempt from land tax for the primary residence, and the threshold for investment properties is the same for everyone, including foreigners, at $600,000. If you do not live in Australia or meet the residency requirements, known officially as an absentee, the land tax threshold is lowered to $350,000. To qualify as an absentee, you must be a foreign citizen, including New Zealand citizens, not have permanent residency, and not reside in Australia. For example, if you're a foreigner without PR, buy property in Queensland, but do not live there, no land tax is levied on land value under $350,000. So this could be a strategy to use if you're a foreigner. Ongoing costs. Number 2, land tax surcharge for foreign buyers. The land tax surcharge is an additional tax levied annually on foreign buyers. They have to pay the standard land tax and this surcharge, another recurring cost. Like land tax, the surcharge is a state levy, and each state has different rates and terminology. But the principles are similar. The main criterion for determining if you need to pay the land tax surcharge is whether you reside in Australia frequently. Definition of frequent residency vary by state. For instance, in New South Wales, if you haven't lived in Australia for a total of 200 days within a year, you're considered not to reside frequently and are thus subject to the surcharge. Victoria is different. If you lived in the property for less than 6 months in the calendar year prior to the current financial year, or not in Australia on the 31st of December prior to the current financial year, you are deemed to not reside frequently and must pay the surcharge. The situation in New South Wales is particularly complex. In short, if you're a PR but do not live in Australia for 200 days in total, then you will receive a bill for land tax surcharge in January the coming year. And then, if you promise to live in the principal place of residence for a continuous 200 days in the coming year, your land tax for the principal place of residence is waived, but you still have to pay the land tax surcharge on the investment property for last year. This means that a PR may not be able to leave Australia in June or July just to comply with the continuous 200 days requirement. Note that New Zealand citizens buying properties in New South Wales may soon also lose the exemption from the land tax surcharge. The land tax surcharge poses a significant financial burden for foreign buyers investing in the Australian property market. Often, without accounting for the surcharge, a property might seem profitable. But once it's included, losses can occur unless specific wealth strategies increase the property's revenue. These strategies could include building a dual occupancy home to collect 2 rents, participating in property development, using the property for short-term rentals through Airbnb, or securing more favorable financing rates. It's generally difficult for a foreign buyer to profit from investing in Australian property. But we at Aus Property Strategy have developed a method that enables overseas individuals to make money, which is why many foreign buyers join the Vision membership to invest in the Australian property market. Ongoing costs. Number 3, vacant residential land tax. The vacant residential land tax is levied in the inner suburbs of Melbourne, such as Melbourne, Monash, Port Phillip. Properties that are vacant for more than 6 months in a year are subject to 1% vacancy tax, calculated based on the capital improved value (CIV) listed on the council rate notice. This tax is distinct from the land tax surcharge, and the federal vacancy tax, and it applies to everyone, whether local or overseas landlords. To avoid this tax, the property must be occupied. It can be owner-occupied, rented to relatives, or leased out, including short-term rentals. The vacant residential land tax operates on a self-reporting basis. Failure to declare can lead not only to the tax being levied, but also a potential government penalty of up to 90%. From January 1st, 2025, the scope of this vacancy tax will expand beyond just a few inner-city suburbs to encompass all of Victoria. Any residential property in Victoria left vacant for over 6 months, no matter where it is located, will be subject to this tax. Ongoing cost number 4, vacancy fee for foreign owners. The federal government's vacancy tax is administered and collected by the Australian Taxation Office and applies across all Australian states and territories. The vacancy fee for foreign owners means that if overseas individuals purchase property in Australia and leave it unoccupied, neither rented out nor owner-occupying, they will face a vacancy tax, charged annually at twice the rate of the initial FIRB application fee. The property is considered vacant if it's unrented and not owner-occupied for more than 6 months within the year. Short-term rentals like Airbnb are usually not counted towards this occupancy period. The one who's living in the property can be the property owner or direct relatives, such as a mother purchasing a property for her child studying in Australia. This would be considered owner-occupied for the purpose of the tax. The vacancy tax currently operates on a declaration system where all property owners must report to the ATO annually. Ongoing cost number 5, home loan interest. The interest rates for principal residents owned by locals in Australia are currently at around 6.5%. Interest rates for investment properties are typically higher. Some local Australian banks and non-banking financial institutions, such as funds, are open to lending to foreign buyers. The interest rates are generally higher and include various types of application fees. The Australian lending approach differs from that in other countries. Eligibility and loan amounts are based on personal income, how much money you have earned recently, and your earning expectations, rather than on assets. If you lack income but possess considerable assets, securing a loan can still be challenging. There are many strategies and tips available to help you unlock equity to buy another property, pay off a loan sooner, or increase your borrowing capacities. Aus Property Strategy has developed 5 major strategies to increase loan amounts for Vision members, ensuring that they won't face borrowing challenges before achieving financial freedom through property investment. Ongoing cost number 6, Strata Levy. In Australia, if a residential property is under a torrens title, such as a standalone house, there's no strata levy because there's no shared land or facilities. However, properties under strata titles, such as apartments and townhouses, require the payment of a strata levy. Generally, newer properties have lower strata levies than older ones. Low-density apartments have lower strata levies than high-rise buildings, and properties without facilities like gyms and pools have lower fees than those with these facilities. Properties located further from the city centres also typically have lower levies. For example, an older 2-bedroom high-rise apartment in Sydney CBD with facilities can have a quarterly strata levy exceeding $4,000. In contrast, a new 2-bedroom mid-density apartment about 20 kilometers from the city centre without facilities might have a strata levy of around $1,100 a quarter. Similar to strata levies are community levies. Some large housing developments in Australia operate under a community title, featuring gated communities with multiple buildings and shared facilities like gardens, roads, and activity centres. Owners in these developments pay community levies, which are similar in nature to strata levies. Note that the title system in WA is very different from that of cities on the East Coast. Ongoing cost number 7, council rates. Council rates are fees collected by the councils from all property owners within their jurisdiction to fund local infrastructure and waste management, among other services. The amount each property owner pays annually depends on the total tax revenue needed by the local council and the land value of the property. Council rates are proportional to land values. The higher the land value, the higher the rates. Property owners can choose to pay council rates annually in one lump sum or quarterly, as indicated on the bill. The rates vary by state and territory, with rates in New South Wales ranging from $1,000 to $1,500 a year. In Victoria, council rates are approximately 0.2% of the CIV, which represents the current market value of the land and building as indicated on the council rate notice. Ongoing costs number 8, water rates. Water rates are expenses for every property owner. While they vary by state, they generally consist of a connection fee and a usage charge. The connection fee ranges between $180 and $250 per quarter, and the usage is calculated based on the water consumption. Typically, landlords pay the connection fee, while tenants are responsible for the usage charges. If you live in properties like apartments or townhouses under a strata title, you may never see the usage charges separately because there's only one water meter for the entire building, and usage fees are portioned to each unit based on the same ratio as the strata fees. In this scenario, it's not feasible to charge tenants for water usage. Beware that in some newly developed areas, water charges can be particularly high, with an additional $300 to $500 per quarter to support the expansion of water infrastructure and services. Ongoing costs number 9, insurance. Insurance options are diverse, but I'll discuss the essential ones that everyone should consider. Landlord insurance is a must for property owners who rent out their properties. What if the tenant falls behind on rent or damages the property, and the deposit isn't enough to cover the losses? That's where landlord insurance comes in, costing about $1 a day or a little over $300 annually. It has recently seen a price increase. However, it's still totally worth it. For standalone houses, regardless of their location, it's crucial to have building insurance covering unpredictable disasters like earthquakes, floods, lightning, trees falling on the house, hurricanes, and even incidents like roof leaks. The premium varies based on the construction cost of the house and can range from several hundred to several $1,000s annually. For apartments or townhouses, paying the strata fee suffices, as the property management extracts a portion of these fees to insure the entire building. Ongoing cost number 10, property management. If you intend to rent out your property, you will likely need a property management agency. To find tenants, agencies charge a one-time commission equivalent to 1 to 2 weeks' rent, called a letting fee. For ongoing management, they charge between 5% and 12% of the rental income as a management fee. The fee varies by state. For instance, New South Wales typically charges around 5%, Queensland 8%, and Perth 12%. The highest I've seen is 16% for long-term rentals for high-end beachfront properties. For management like Airbnb, the fee is about 20% of the rental income. Ongoing costs number 11, vacancy. Vacancy is a hidden cost seldom discussed. It refers to how many weeks per year your rental property remains unoccupied. For example, when a node tenant moves out, the agent may hold weekly open inspections to find a new tenant. Fortunately, due to the high demand and low supply, finding tenants is usually not a problem today. Generally, it's reasonable to budget for about 2 weeks for vacancy per year when making financial plans. Ongoing cost number 12, maintenance. For houses, routine maintenance and repairs are the responsibility of the landlord. Mechanical systems like air conditioning and heating might be serviced every 2 years. Pools may need monthly or quarterly maintenance to clean leaves, check the water, and clean the pump. Smoke detectors require annual maintenance. Gutters need yearly upkeep. If the gutter blockage causes leaks, insurance won't cover the damage. Timber structures should be inspected for termites at least once a year. A typical call-out fee for an electrician or plumber starts at $200, not including labor and parts. Altogether, you should set aside at least $1,500 to $2,000 annually for maintenance costs. The main reason I made this video is that many people ask about the costs associated with buying a house, and responding to these queries can be overwhelming as each person's questions vary. To make it easier for everyone, I spent over 2 days summarizing all these expenses according to the latest 2024 standards to address all property-related cost inquiries at once for our channel followers. If you know someone who needs clarification on the cost of buying a house in Australia, simply share this video with them. However, all this information can only help you understand the cost items and basic calculation methods. Some may still find it confusing or difficult to apply in practice, especially when it comes to investment decisions, portfolios, and financial goals. Therefore, you might need a complete team to develop a practical plan for you, including property investment planning, mortgage strategies, tax structuring, legal protection, and comprehensive financial planning. Join the Property Strategy Vision membership for one-stop Australian property investment and management service. Contact us now. Details are in the video description below. If you made it this far, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe and share this video with your friends. Turn on the notification bell to watch new weekly videos. Have a good one. Bye-bye.